some of the business issues that you face in your businesses every day? Somebody's
Resources, the right people, right time.
resources, okay?
Containing scope.
What was that?
Containing scope.
Scope creep.
Cost sensitivity.
Is creep 2 E's or an EA? I don't know. Cost?
2 E's.
Cost sensitivity.
Cost sensitivity. Which is kind of in a sales, right? From a sales perspective. What else? What other business issues that you focus, that you encounter?
Getting clients to pay what's past due before asking for more.
Aha! Aha! Receivables. Managing receivables. That's huge. What else?
Oh, I just told you this, but getting clients to understand that building a site in Drupal is very different than building a regular website, and asking you for things that are going to be there when they give you the content for it, but aren't there now.
Got it. Drupal does not equal other sites. Okay? That's awesome. What else?
Finding clients.
Ooh, sales! Good. New clients, I assume you mean.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not important that you can read this, I can read it, so it's
Confusion about technology and evaluating comparatively different tools and approaches.
so you evaluating which technologies to use in your business, is that what?
Or assisting groups with evaluating
Okay.
because they're confused.
Educating your client.
Technology, but I didn't catch that last.
Educating your client.
Say it again?
Educating your client.
Education. Which ties in right here. Drupal is not like other sites. These are client education questions and issues. What else? Good. How many of you in here are business owners? You are owner or partial owner of your business. Okay. How many of you that, and if you raise your hand already, that's okay, just leave it down, but how many of the rest of you are managers, you're somehow managing a process or people or something in your business? Okay, we got one more over here, a couple more over here. The rest of you that didn't raise your hand, would you raise your hand right now? So we have 3 people. What is your role in your business?
Right now I'm looking for work. I was
Looking for work. Okay, good. And there was a hand over here.
I'm the same pile.
Looking for work. She just walked by. She just showed up.
the mellifluous
That's
sound of
great.
your
You're the
voice.
best. You're surprised.
She's not looking for work, she's trying not to do it.
She doesn't want to do work. She's infinitely wealthy. Good. There's at least one in the room. That's awesome. That's good to have. So the rest of you that were looking, the 2 of you that are looking for work, look at the names and faces of all the people around you, because these are the people that are trying to solve these problems and help them solve those problems, and chances are you'll find a job. Now, let me go ahead and dive in here. I'm going to try to address every single one of the things that you guys talked about today. And if I get to the end, we're going to go back through and we're going to check off the ones, and anything that I haven't addressed, I will talk about in the Q&A, and I want to try and leave about 15 or 20 minutes at the end for Q&A. I think we'll be okay. So I'll talk for about half an hour. The other thing is, if you want to send me feedback or ask a question while I'm talking, shout it out if you want to, or send me a tweet, and that's fine too, and I'll stop periodically and check my Twitter account and field any questions as we go. Also, if you want a copy of the slides, go ahead and send me a tweet as well, or direct message me, and I'd be happy to email the slides to you. My email address, let me go ahead and put that up here. If you prefer to do email, if you're old school, it's ben@Veloci.com. Okay, so I'm the founder and CEO of Veloci. We're a search engine optimization company, and one of the things that you should know about me is that I am not a designer or a fashion model or anything related to the stuff that you guys are experts at. I don't know about that piece of your business. I don't know how to make a website look really well designed. And so if you're here to get that kind of information, you're in the wrong session. There are sessions before mine, after mine, and even other ones going on right now, but I'm not going to talk too much about design. I'm going to talk about the business end of things, okay? Oh, wow. Oh, good. So what is a successful business? In my experience, and from talking to other business owners, a successful business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. Okay? Let's talk about those. Commercial. What does that mean? It means that you have a brand. It means you're selling a product. It means that people are buying from you. It's profitable. It means at the end of the month, after you pay all the bills and you collect all the receivables, there's more than you started with at the beginning of the month. It's an enterprise. Yeah, in theory, right? It's an enterprise. It means that there are people. There are people all working toward the same goal. You're all trying to get the same things done. It works. There's synergy. The business actually functions. This is important. And it works without you. It means you as the owner of that business or the manager in the business are not walking around micromanaging every little thing. You don't have your fingers in every single website that goes out the door. There are things that happen when you go on vacation and you get back and your business is bigger and better and has progressed while you were gone. Okay? If you are in the business every single day in every single way, guess what? You don't have a successful business. You have a business, you have a job, but you don't own your business. Your business owns you. Okay? Now, what I want to do for the next 26 minutes is talk about each of these 5 different things and go into some detail about what I mean about each of those 5, and then we'll take questions at the end. So, first off, find your niche. There's a book, it's called The Origin of Brands, and the idea behind The Origin of Brands is that in the business world, a brand in a market category evolves just like living creatures evolve. Okay? So everybody's familiar with evolution. You learned it at school. Everybody raise your hand if you heard about evolution. You know about evolution. Good. Some people haven't, so that's weird. But anyway, brands evolve. So if you go back and let's look at the early part of last century, and the big industry that was just coming along was the automobile. And Henry Ford didn't invent the automobile, but he invented the first mass-produced automobile, and everybody could buy one. Everybody could afford an automobile. But what you got was a Model T, and it was black, and that's all you got. It was a black Model T. If you wanted to buy a car, if you wanted to buy a sports car, you bought a black Model T. If you wanted to buy a pickup truck, you bought a black Model T. If you wanted an SUV, you bought a black Model T. That's what you had. And what happened very quickly after that? There was divergence of the market. And so what you had were people who came along and said, well, you know what? People want different colors of cars. And so what you got were black Model Ts, and then you got the other cars that were colored. And they did different things. And then people wanted big chrome on their car, and they wanted big wheels. And then people wanted to use vehicles for work. And so they built pickup trucks, and they built lorries, they call them overseas. And they built these enormous 18-wheelers. And then people said, you know what, I want a smaller truck, just so I can tool around town and carry furniture where I want to go. So they built a little pickup truck. And then they built the sports car, and then they built the muscle car, and they built the SUV, and they did so on and so on and so on. And you had this divergence, but they all came from basically the mass-produced Model T at the first part of last century. The same thing happens with other brands. Anybody bought a cup of coffee in the last, I don't know, week? Okay, where did you buy your coffee? Say it, come on, everybody knows. Where'd you buy it?
Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts. Here in Boston is Dunkin' Donuts. I didn't know that. In Austin, it's Starbucks. There's a Starbucks on every corner. Here, it's Dunkin'. You can't go to you can buy Dunkin' Donuts, and then you can pull up to the next street and buy gas and get Dunkin' Donuts in the gas station. And there's like a guy on the corner selling Dunkin' Donuts. It's like weird here with Dunkin' Donuts, but everybody goes to Dunkin' Donuts. If you go back 20 years ago or 30 years ago, you went to a coffee shop maybe and you paid 50 cents for a cup of coffee. Now, for me anyway, you go to Starbucks and I don't buy the expensive coffee. My cup of coffee is about $2. But Starbucks is a diversification of the coffee trunk. Okay? So, origin of brands. Business categories evolve just like species. As these categories branch off. The one who dominates the branch are the companies that are successful, the ones that stay where they're comfortable in the main section of that industry. They're the ones that fall apart. We call them the muddy middle. Okay? If you exploit the divergence, you survive and you thrive, and you get survival of the firstest. It's not the first company that was there. Again, Ford was not the first guy to invent the automobile, but he was the first guy that gained the mind share. Everybody thought, I'm going to buy a Model T. He was the first guy there. Other ones came along. You can be second. First is not the only place to be. You can be second, but you've got to diverge the market. You've got to find some other way that you can present your ideas that are different than the market leader. And so you get the power of pruning. And as the markets diverge, as you cut away pieces of your business that are not your core thing that you do, you will get better and better and better at doing that one thing, and you become the niche. You become the brand. So, niche players thrive. Ernst Haeckel in the 1800s came up with this tree, and I know you probably can't read all that stuff, but he called this the pedigree of man. And what kind of went up through here was, here's where the common ancestor of all these different branches of animals. And so you get the, up near the top, you get the Homo sapiens, and you get the apes, and you get all these things, and they all came from this common ancestor, and there's this divergence, right? So what I propose is that we present today the Ben Finklea's pedigree of Drupal. Awesome. Okay? So this is the Drupal community, and the trunk is Drupal. And everybody in the early part of the Drupal evolution were site builders. They built sites. They were coders. That's what Drupal needed. They built this great platform. Nobody else got it. And it was fantastic. And they were site builders. And then companies came along and they said, oh, we can offer some products and services. So there's the commercial support for Drupal. Who can tell me who does commercial support for Drupal? Who are they? Come on. Acquia, very good. So Acquia came along and said, hey, we're going to do the commercial support for Drupal. And then there was a training companies. Who does the video DVD training, and they have stuff to do? Lullabot does the training, very good. And then they came along, and where are we? We had hosting. Who does Drupal hosting? Black Mesh. Very good. Black Mesh. Have you heard of Black Mesh? Some people have. Who's heard of the hosting on the cloud? Who's that?
Rackspace Cloud.
It's Rackspace Cloud. Moso can pay in the Rackspace Cloud. And who does the low-end hosting?
Anyone.
Anybody. Lots of people do, right? But the name that comes to mind for a lot of people is GoDaddy. And this is the divergence of hosting. There's the high-end.
GoDaddy actually does some Drupal.
It sucks, but yes, it's there and it's cheap. Okay, it's $4 or $5 a month or less to do a site on GoDaddy. But you get this divergence, and they're very successful at the low end of the market. And then you get the people who are on the cloud, and there's people who want that. You get the Black Meshes of the world who are super high end, big iron type hosting.
Well, if you're looking for hosting, you look for black mesh type hosting, right? Otherwise, you just try to deal with it yourself.
You deal with the issues, right? So, and then that's a niche that's been carved, right? And it's a very successful one. Who's the big SEO company in the Drupal world? Yay! Good. Oh man, that's for like a second there. I was like, oh no!
Talk's over.
Presentation's over. No, it's Malachi, and so we're the Drupal SEO company, and that's what we've spent our time marketing ourselves as, the Drupal SEO company. We were site builders 2 years ago. We built Drupal websites. Well, we don't anymore. We pruned. We got rid of that whole part of our business, and now all we do is online marketing. Okay? So what other types of companies are out there? Designers, right? How many of you are designers or own design companies? You're in the design world. A lot of you. Not all of you. That's good. So what if I am a bankruptcy attorney and I want to build a website, and I know that I want Drupal, or maybe I don't know I want Drupal, but I know I want to build a website and I want it to be on a content management system that's good. Who do I turn to? Well, if I'm that attorney, is there somebody who specializes in building bankruptcy attorney websites in the room? No? Do you know anybody in the Drupal community that they specialize in building bankruptcy attorney websites? Okay, so if I'm a bankruptcy attorney, I'm okay, well I can't find anybody who specializes in that, so let me look for somebody who just does attorney websites. That'd be okay. Is anybody in the room that specializes in attorney websites? Scratching your ear. Okay, nobody does attorney work. Anybody know anybody in the Drupal community who does? You do know somebody in Drupal
Yeah, I
community
don't,
who specializes in building attorney websites? Well, if I'm an attorney, guess what? I'm going, well, there's not many who builds attorney websites in the Drupal community, so what do I do? What's next up the tree? Is just designers. And how many of you are designers? Let's see the show of hands again. Designers. How many of you know designers in the Drupal community? You know some designers? How many know more than 10 designers in the Drupal community? More than 100. If I'm an attorney looking for a website, how do I make a decision about who to build my website? It's a hard and long process. But if I find somebody that's the Drupal bankruptcy attorney designing web company, where am I going to spend my money? Is there any question where I'm going to spend my money? Now, I happen to know that there is a company doing just that. They're building bankruptcy websites for attorneys in Drupal. That's it. That's all they do. Isn't that crazy? And they're making a ton of money doing it. I know because I'm their SEO guy.
How does, I mean, everything you say I agree with and it makes a lot of sense. But on the other hand, it just seems like you're concentrating on attorneys that do bankruptcies and you're cutting out everybody else, right?
Yes.
So how do you kind of justify doing that with branching?
That's a great question. The question is, it seems like when you focus on a particular niche, it seems like you're cutting out everybody else that you might want to do business with, right? So you can't do business with anybody else if you're focused on your niche. And I would say that that's a good thing, actually, to cut out all the other companies that might want to build a website. If you can focus in on a small niche, you can do a number of things. Number one, your customers find you. Okay? If I go Google right now and I put in bankruptcy attorney's website in Drupal, guess what? There's not going to be very many people competing for that term. It's going to be very easy for you to get customers that way. If you are in this community and you become known as the guys who do that, guess what? When other design companies come along and they need help or they hear somebody who needs an attorney website, they're going to send them to you. Okay? Now you can't pick a niche that's so small that there's nobody in it or that they don't have any money, because you've got to make money, and believe me, attorneys have tons and tons of money. So it's a niche that's growing and thriving, or if the niche is big enough, and there are ways to carve out even in niches that don't have money. Yes, sir?
How many attorneys are going to care what platform their website runs on?
That is a great question. The question was, how many attorneys are going to care that their website is built in Drupal? And probably not very many. However, is there anybody else out there saying, we have a complete solution for attorneys? And there's probably one or two, but there aren't very many. Okay? But we've all come across attorneys who want websites, right? Mm-hmm. We've come across, we maybe didn't do the job, but we heard about it, and maybe we bid on it or something. So the niche, finding that niche, they will find you if you provide a product that is exactly what they're looking for. Let's move up there's other types of law. What about enterprise Drupal? What about the next, most of us are small companies. There's a couple of medium-sized companies represented here. But what about enterprise Drupal? What about providing commercial conversion? Coming over from, the vignettes of the world, the high-dollar Accenture websites, and getting those companies converted. What if you specialize in converting them? Very technical thing, but converting them over to an open source platform. There is business there. What about security? And I know this because I've been talking with the people over at Acquia, and they're looking for companies that do that exact thing, that can help bring businesses over from these big, they spend $1 million a year on Vignette and other closed source content management systems, and they're looking to get out from underneath that. How many of you can build a website for $1 million? Okay. Security. Military, do you know anybody does military security for Drupal sites? Anybody know anybody? What about government? What about corporate? You do some of that?
I know somebody who does.
You know people who do that? Okay, but it's few and far between. You know some people?
Butcher House has done some of the, worked on some of the big corporates.
Okay.
It's like Lifetime and Fast Company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. What about data management? How about data warehousing, intranets, building intranets? What about designers? I put you at the top of the tree. I thought you would. Healthcare websites. How about just hospital websites? What about just small doctor websites? What if you built a system that you could just easily crank out a doctor? That's the other thing. When you niche, you get really good at it. And it's cheap for you to build sites that you can sell for the same price that you're building custom sites now. Because you're so good at it, and you've done it so many times before, and you build that trust, and you can charge more for it because it works perfect every time, right?
Well, I think there's a difference between the niches that you choose. I mean, like take Rachi, for instance.
Sure.
You know, you choose the Drupal community as your
Drupal
customer
community,
base,
yeah,
right?
is
And so
my
that's-
super niche.
That's
right.
almost like, that's like basically, I can't think of a good, it's like being the wholesaler or something like that, right? You don't have to deal with like the end customer because you're wholesaling to the people that deal with the end customers, you know what I mean? So it's,
Oh, I deal with end customers every
well,
day.
yeah, I mean, you do, but it's, I'm just trying to get the idea of the niche where like you give them a crate, they break it up and they sell the little pieces out of it, right? And so, you know, it's kind of like some of those aren't the same as others. That's,
I agree.
Yeah, that's.
I agree. This is a theory. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not going to go and use this in your customer presentations, are you? I mean, this is a theory. This is an idea. Yes, ma'am.
Just speaking from the perspective of someone who does have a fairly well-developed niche, my niche is food and sustainability. So I work with food companies and I work with green businesses. And the biggest advantage that I've found is, first of all, I'm working with more people that I actually like, which for me, being the type of person who will tell you off if I don't like you.
They get it.
It's
They
a
get
good
what you're
thing.
doing.
They get what I'm doing. And the other thing is you get to know that particular industry really, really well. So even just from the perspective of researching a job, it's so much easier and you're spending so much less time just because you already know that industry so well that you already know who the main players are, who the competition is. So it makes everything easier.
Great point. I have a question along those same lines. How many of you in here have an unlimited marketing budget? I don't see any hands. Okay? So if you can take that limited marketing budget that you have and you can focus it in on one small niche, you will make more headway in that one area than if you're spreading it all around and just trying to do everything for everybody. Yes, sir.
Okay, let's say that you're at the point where you're comfortable with the Drupal side of things, and you decide that you want to target car dealers or whatever. How do you find out what they need? I mean, obviously you can go out and look at sites that are existing. You can learn by trial and error. Are there other...
I would say just like in the real world of evolution, that it's the external pressures that cause the divergence, not somebody just, you know, the monkey didn't decide that he was going to grow a tail. It happened because he needed a tail, right? I think that's what happens in our businesses as well, is that you find yourself doing the same thing a lot of the time, and you realize, wow, there's a market. That's what happened with us in SEO. You know, we didn't set out to be an SEO company. We set out to provide what people wanted and what people needed, but we found that A, we were doing a lot of SEO, and B, we were really good at SEO, and, you know, to be really honest with the room, C, we weren't that great at building websites. We could get the job done, but there were people who were way, way better than we were. So we could be in the muddy middle and be mediocre at doing one thing, or we could be absolutely the best at doing this other thing. And so we decided, let's be the best at it and see what happens, and it's worked. So, what about education websites? What about church websites? Anybody here know a company that specializes in Drupal church websites?
Mustard Seed Media.
Mustard Seed, you focus on Drupal church websites.
That's not me, but Mustard Seed does.
Mustard Seed does. Anybody else?
Yes, I do Project 47 as well.
Project 47, look at that. They focus on building websites just for churches. And Mustard Seed's another one. They've niched up. And when you announce to a room, hey, I need somebody who does X, and two different people in the room go, yeah, we got that. We got that right here. Where am I going to go when I need my church website? You know? So, project management, there's lots of other areas, and what's going to be recruiting, what's at the top, you know, I don't know. We'll know when we get there, okay? So the second thing I want to talk about, that's niche, that's branding, that's the sales side of things, okay? That's who the world perceives your company as. Now let's talk about processes, okay? As a business owner, you need to build processes to run your company. There's a book, it's called The E-Myth Revisited. Has any of you read that book? Okay? It will change the way that you view how your business operates. And I highly encourage you to go buy that book and read it. It's short, it's $12 or $14 off Amazon. It's a paperback book. Fantastic, fantastic book. The idea is processes run your company and your team runs your processes. Okay? Why should you write processes for the stuff that you do?
So you can repeat them?
So that you can do it again and again and
Yeah.
again and again and again. So that you're, what's the word? What's the word? Consistent.
Consistent.
Consistent. So that you're consistent.
Mm.
Okay? There's another reason to write processes. Because when you sit down and you write a process, or you're doing a task and you write the process as you're doing the task, well, guess what? The next time you do it and a problem crops up, everything has a process. 99.9% of the problems are a process problem, not a people problem. Okay, have you ever heard this before?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So if you have a written process, you can go back through that process and you can go, oh, you know what, right here, we missed a step. We didn't follow the process. Or you can come back and go, there was no step to cover that. Okay? I had this experience, it was about a year ago, and we signed a new client. We were very pleased. It was a medium-sized deal, and 2 weeks into that, we were going blowing, doing what we do. Everything was going well, and 2 weeks in, the owner of that company called me and fired me, fired Valachi for the project. And I was like, I don't understand. Everything's going fine. Look, here's all the stuff that we've done. And he was like, I don't know what's going on. I know you're doing something, but I'm just having a hard time understanding exactly where the project is heading. I was like, well, we went through that in the sales process. Well, here's the proposal, and it tells exactly what's gonna. It's like, yeah, I don't have a good feeling about it, and I want to cancel the contract. So, I let him out of the contract because I only want to have happy customers, right? So we went back and we had a meeting. It took us about 2 hours, and what we figured out was we need a document that tells new clients step by step exactly what's happening in the first 6 weeks of the project, where a lot of the groundwork is laid for an SEO contract. And so we call it our Valachi SEO Quick Start Guide. That's what we call it. And it is just, we wrote it in Pages. I'm on a Mac, we wrote it in Pages, and it has some check boxes, and it's colored, one color for the client, another color for the stuff that we do, and then there's milestones, and every milestone is a meeting. And so in our launch meeting, which is a 2-hour meeting we have at the beginning of every SEO project that we do, we put dates and times on that document that here's these meetings, and when we have that meeting, you know that these things are done, and then we do these things and we have a meeting, and these things and have a meeting. Guess how many customers we've lost because they didn't know what was going on since we put that document in place? None. None.
So do you have,
Okay.
you have any tips on, or recommendations on how to iron out your processes without having to, suffer through something like that beforehand? There's basically no way.
Yeah, and actually Gerber uses a lot of, he talks about that. But one thing that you can do is you can have somebody sit beside you as you do the process and document it.
Yep.
Okay? So you know what you have processes, you just don't, maybe you haven't written them down.
Yep.
But you know what, the process that you know is not the same process that your employees doing, because there's no documentation for it. So if you document, if you do it, and you document it, and then you put that documentation in, content management system on an internet somewhere, so that they can go easily find the process and then run it. Anybody know how to do that in this room? Okay, good. Sorry, a little bit facetious, but you understand what I'm trying to say. It's easy. You put it up somewhere that's easy for people to find. Once a quarter, it's on a Friday, I order in a ton of pizza and other junk food, and my whole company shuts down, and all we do is write processes for the whole day. I do that 4 days a year. Okay? In one of those days, we write, on average, we write maybe 60 or 70 new processes every quarter. Stuff like how to get and sort the mail becomes a process. Because you know what? The person that's in that job right now knows how to do it, but what if that person gets promoted or moves away? Well, I'm the owner of the business, so that means when I hire somebody else to come in and do that job, I've got to sit down with them for 2 or 3 days and get them trained up on how to get all those little things done. Or I can have an intranet and I can say, look, click right here, and it takes you to all the Office Assistant processes, and it tells you exactly what you're supposed to do day in and day out. Saves me a ton of time. How many of you could stand to have an extra 2 or 3 days on your calendar every time you hire somebody? Saves a lot of time. Makes people happy too. Because
Sorry. to interrupt.
unhappiness happens when people don't know what to expect, or they don't know what's expected of them. Right? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, you created a setup where you hire a new office assistant and they come to you and they're like, oh, what do I do if I want to take out the trash? And you're like, no, just look here. And it says, step 1, go to the trash bin. Step 2, take it out this side door,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that seems like a daunting undertaking,
I didn't write that process.
Yeah.
You know who wrote that process?
The whole team.
The first assistant that I had 2 years ago
Yeah.
on process day wrote that process.
I see. So
She wrote the process. Well, I have a trash guy, or what do you call it these days? But I mean, so it's just about how to make coffee. We have a really nice coffee machine, but it's like the pods and where the water goes and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, it's when you get down to that finite level, you start to think, well, this is a little bit silly. But the reality is that processes, repeatable processes, frees your mind for the creativity that have to go into your day-to-day work. So if people are thinking about, what do I do, how do I do it, they're not thinking creatively about their jobs, and so what they end up doing is all that creativity goes into figuring stuff out every day. If they no longer have to think about it, they can improve the processes, figure out neat new ways of doing things. It frees up their mind to think about other things, and we have hundreds of processes that run our company. Now, we're talking about low-level processes here. What about design process? What about documenting a design process? What about those meetings? You probably have a list of questions you ask clients when you go into that initial launch meeting, things you need to know. That's a process. That list is a process. If you get in that meeting, things start to go off, is it because you don't have the right questions on your list? So you rewrite the list. That launch meeting list that we go in, we probably rewrite it monthly. We add stuff on, we take stuff out. We've been asking this question for 2 years and we never use the data. We'll stop asking that question. Okay? Build processes into your company. Write enough detail to get the job done, but don't create inflexibility. People are smart. They just need to know what to do. And then we have a concept I'm going to introduce here called KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators. Okay? What's the KPI when somebody's taking the trash out? What is it? It's an empty trash bin, right? Right? So KPIs drive your people, and you pay your people based on their KPIs. When their KPI numbers are good, you give them bonuses. And when their KPI numbers are bad, you train them, you help them, you show them and make sure they know the processes. People will do what you train them to do. Okay? All right, let's go on from there. This is the Valachi intranet. Okay? Recognize that theme? Good. But notice across the top, I have link building only processes, I have contacts, I have companies we work with, logins that we use, pay-per-click processes, SEO processes, and I literally just put this up there. I don't have any special, I didn't use CCK and views and all the cool stuff that you're supposed to do and all that. I just wrote a process about how to write a process in our intranet. And then people go in there and they copy that and they paste it into a new node. And then they fill in the information, and then we have the searching thing, and then we do have taxonomy so people can easily find it. So here's an example of a process. Well, send a welcome email to a new client. Okay, here's how to do it. Here's what you need. You need an email client, and you need the email address of the client. Okay, and then here's how to do this. Copy and paste the following into an email, and then fill in the blanks. Okay, so are they having to sit and think and type up an email? They know what they're supposed to say, but they don't even have to do that anymore. Now they're welcome to go in and customize it and be creative. I really enjoyed the salad we had at whatever. All right, so there's the rest of it just so you can see it. And then down here at the bottom, here's the different categories that they can go to. So we have processes divided by the job type of thing that they're doing, and then we have processes by the position that the person is in. So this would be handled by an account manager when they've got a new client onboarding. This is part of sales and marketing. I'm not sure why those are two separate things, but in any case. And then this is a list of our SEO processes. And this is like a fraction of our SEO processes. But This is an active, living, breathing thing. We change these things every day. We had a client who said we want some keywords that are in Spanish. And we didn't have the steps in place to do that. And so we screwed it up. Because I didn't know that Spanish for bankruptcy, bankruptcia? It's in Google, it seemed like the right thing, but it's actually, anybody speak Spanish? You speak Spanish?
No.
What is it? Okay, that. Well, we screwed it up. Okay, so now we went and changed our keyword research process, and it said if you're doing research in a language that is not English, you will recontact the client and find a language expert, or you'll go out and find a language expert to help you do that. Well, we didn't have, now to me, I wouldn't have guessed, but you know, my team, that's okay, they guessed, they got it wrong, we fixed the process. It wasn't the guy's fault, he followed the process. He did the best he could, he used Google. Google knows everything, right? Okay, well, now we have a different process. How are we doing we're almost out of time. All right, recruiting, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. The concept here is that you get the employees that you deserve. If you have complaints about your employees, then you have complaints about yourself. Okay? That's a hard thing, but your company is limited by the hiring and the managing that you do. Okay? So here it is. The first thing you need to do for your company, if you want to hire and recruit great employees, and you need to have a company vision, mission, and culture. The company vision is where you're going. The mission is how you're going to get there. The culture is who you are. Okay? And they're short, medium-sized, and long. Okay? And I'm going to show you ours here in a second. Right? A hiring process. You've hired people before, but you're probably just doing it from memory. You know, you have to have an HR process, you have to have an onboarding process, write a hiring process. Where are you going to run the ads? Where are those ad descriptions? You hire the same kind of people again and again and again when you own a business. Did you write a description that worked well? Did it get good people when you wrote that description? If not, rewrite it. But keep it on your intranet so that you have somewhere you can go to when you're ready to hire that type of person again. But create a process. What are you going to do? Write a position contract. Position contract is not an employment contract. Employment contract tells people how much money they're going to make and how many vacation days they get and what they do when they're sick. A position contract tells them the KPIs that they're going to be measured against in order to get good reviews, get their bonuses, and keep their job. Okay? It is a description of everything that they're going to need to do on a day in and day out basis. It sets the expectation before they're even hired, and when they come in with great expectations of what they're supposed to do and the right expectations, they will perform to those expectations. But only if you measure them. If you set up these KPIs and you never talk about them again, guess what? They know that you didn't mean it, and they're not going to function toward the KPIs that you've established. KPIs, key performance indicators, good KPIs for a design company are what? You tell me.
Deadlines. Meeting deadlines.
Meeting deadlines. Fantastic KPI. That's a fantastic. Your clients are very happy when you meet a deadline. Okay. What's another KPI? Deadlines is huge. What's another one? Reporting, time measurement, billable hours.
Time tracking.
Time tracking.
Huge one.
Okay. These are all KPIs. Okay. We have a KPI that we bonus on, that's education. So in our industry, we get Google certifications, and we read books, and we do things like that. And every month, my expectation is that my guys who work on SEO campaigns are going to get better at SEO. And so they have to show me that they're doing that, and I give them a bonus every single month when they come in to their bonus meeting, and they say, here's what I did this month. And we have weekly meetings to measure KPIs, and then we have monthly bonus meetings so that we can actually give them some extra money based on how well they performed in the previous month. Okay? Part of their salary, and am I paying them more money? No, I'm not paying them more money. When I hired them, I said, here's how much money you're going to make, and this much is guaranteed, and this much is your bonus. And yes, it's about like that. Okay? It's about 70% base and 30% bonus, and my expectation is that everybody gets all of their bonus all the time. Does it happen? No, it doesn't. But when they miss their bonus consistently, I fire them. Because if they're not meeting their KPIs, that means they're failing for my customer, they're wasting my money and my time. Because I'm the owner of the business, right? You're the owner of your businesses, and you get what you deserve. You get what you put up with. If you put up with it, one person missing their KPIs means everybody's going to miss their KPIs eventually. Why should one person over here work just as hard as this person who's missing everything and get the same pay? They won't. They'll leave. They'll fire themselves and get a different job paying more money for a company that's more fair. You have to fire the people that don't perform. I don't care if they're related to you. You have to fire them. All right. Sorry, I said I was going to speed up, and I didn't. But
So that's one of the processes, basically. I mean, that's kind of like a motivational tool. It's like, here it
Absolutely.
is, that's the deal, take it or leave it. So
That's it.
I like that a lot, actually.
it's hard to do after you already have people on board.
Yeah, I mean,
But you can still do
grandfathering
it.
in stuff is all
It is hard.
Yeah.
But when you hire new people, if you put this into their employment contract and into their position contract and into the hiring process, actually in the job description before they even apply for the job, they know about this. So they have no excuse. Oh, I didn't know that was the deal. Well, you know, no. After you do all those things, run the ad. But you can't run the ad to hire somebody until you have all those things done. Okay? This is the Veloci vision and mission. I know you can't read it. Or can you? I don't know. But Veloci is committed to becoming the world leader in marketing profitable websites by turning customers into raving fans for ourselves and our clients. It's our vision. Okay? Are we the world leader at marketing profitable websites? In Drupal, maybe. But are we the world leader? Are there bigger companies out there marketing profitable websites? Are there better companies out there marketing profitable websites? Probably. So it's not something that it's not a description of who you are, it's where you want to go. And our mission, I won't go into all the details there, but it's how we partner, who we partner with, what kind of customers do we want to work with. When a customer comes to me and they're unhappy with something that we've done and it's just too far gone, this doesn't happen very often because we have regularly scheduled meetings, we have processes to run those meetings with our clients. We know how our clients feel. We ask them on a scale of 1 to 100, how happy are you? And if they're not 100, why? What's going on? What can we do to improve that? So this doesn't happen often, but if a customer comes to me and they're unhappy and they want to fire us, I let them out of their contract. We have annual contracts. I let them out of their contract because part of our mission is that we want to have extremely happy people that we work with. Happy people that you work with means happy employees, means your company's going to grow, and you reduce attrition. This is the Veloci. Hello? Is it working? Oh, there we go. Okay. The Veloci culture statement. We have 14 points of culture. Now, here's something that may seem a little unusual to you, but every person who works for me, the first thing they do when they come into the office every day is they take 10 minutes and they read and review the Veloci vision, mission, and culture. And then we have a sign-up sheet that's sitting over on a desk for everybody to see. It's one of the first things you see when you walk into the office. And after you've read the vision, mission, and culture for that day, you go and you initial the box for that day next to your name. Okay? So everybody who walks by there looks down and they see everybody else is reading the vision, mission, and culture. Somebody new comes on. It's one of the first things we train them to because their first day on the job, we sit them down and say, here's your copy of the vision, mission, and culture. You need to read that, initial here, and then let me know when you're done. Everybody because if you're not reviewing it all the time, how do you remember what this is? This is a long thing. How do you remember what it is? So review it every day. And how do you get them to do that? Well, guess what? That's a KPI. So on the monthly meeting, I grab that sheet and I go, oh, you missed a day, and that's coming out of your bonus. That happens one time, exactly one time with every employee, because it's $100 a month. They miss it one time, it's $100. Okay?
But these are documents that are essentially the same every day.
They're exactly the same.
Okay.
Every day. Yes. It's not, you're reviewing it because you're training yourself who you are and who you are as a person in Veloci. Okay? So that's why you review them. And we can talk, I love the vision, mission, culture idea. When we started doing this, guess what? Conflict just went way down in the company. You know why? Because one of our culture points is that if you have a problem, you take it to the person involved. And you discuss it with them. You don't talk about it with anybody else. And so if somebody does come to somebody else in my company and they say, man, can you believe what Ben did? It makes me so mad. That person is like, go talk to Ben. Yeah. You know? And then we've instituted something called a WIFL. I don't even have a slide for it. But WIFL stands for What I Feel Like Expressing. WIFL. Once a week, every Friday, the whole company gets together in one room, and for 15 minutes we do a whiffle. And we go around the room and nobody can talk except the person whose turn it is, and they get to say anything that they want to say, and nobody else can say anything back. It's a great opportunity for people to get stuff off their chest, to express how stressed they feel, to laugh and talk about fun things that are going on in their own life, talk about stuff that's going on at home, and it creates an environment that is that's happy. Because people don't carry around these grudges. They don't have these little things that become a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger until you have this caustic environment. I love my business. I love coming to work. This is my third business. This is the first business I've loved running because I did all this stuff and I did it right.
If you like open it up, I mean, couldn't it turn into, you know, a coup d'etat where, you know, everybody wants Italian shoes paid by, you know, from the company? I mean,
I don't understand.
That would be an interesting coup d'etat.
yeah, I'm sorry. If by allowing people to air their public, you know, their laundry publicly, wouldn't that, you know, because there's certain times when, you know, you need to draw the line.
Well, it seems like it makes it more like a family rather than a business, because with your family, you always go and bitch about what someone's doing, and if you turn your work environment like that, then even though even though you're giving people shit, you know, sorry for my language, you know, eventually, I mean, you'll either grow closer or you won't, basically, you know. I mean, there's you know, there's only two options.
And when people come into that environment and they experience the whiffle for the first time, usually they sit there and say nothing, and they kind of see and listen to what everybody else has to say. But it's an environment where you're safe. You can say whatever you want in the whiffle environment. And you know, if everybody goes around and says, "Hey, I want Italian shoes," as the business owner, if that's going to make everybody really happy, I'm getting on a plane to Italy. I'm buying everybody shoes. That's great. If that's all it takes, I'm doing it. What's up?
If your employees are at a seminar somewhere, what would they be saying about that process?
About the whiffle process?
And about the sign-in and initialing the credo every day?
What would they be? The question was, what would my employees be saying about the vision, mission, and culture review every morning, and the whiffle? I would say that they understand it, but not at first, and they sure like to get that $100 every month. You know, so this is my vision, and I don't expect somebody just to kowtow to me. I motivate them and incentivize them to do what I know is the right thing for them. And what's great is after somebody's been on board for a few months, and then you're in a meeting with them, and they say, well, you know, this is good enough, but good enough isn't. And that's part of our mission, is that good enough isn't. And you're like, yeah, get it, you know, or they're getting it anyway, you know, or, let's do something fun. We haven't done anything fun in a while. We build fun into our environment. And that's part of that becomes part of the culture because they review it every day. And then when we have certain company meetings, we go around the room, we'll read it together. I recorded mine onto my iPhone and I listen to it on the drive into work every day.
In 5 years down the road, someone says, I just can't face that one more time, and then you lose that person. Or does that become a whiffle?
Ask me in 5 years. It's never happened. I don't know.
Well, I think if that many people are disgruntled by the whole thing, then
they're not.
Revise the process.
Yeah.
It's part of the process.
It's good stuff on there. It's not like, you will do this, and you will do that. It's their I statements. Yeah, I'm going to do, well, so let me move on, and I'd be happy to share, and if you want me to email you our vision, mission, and culture, I'm happy to share with you. What it is, though, it's a fantastic recruiting tool. Because when I get into, and I'm gonna go through the Valachi hiring, the interview process right now, and there we go. So I'm going to talk real quick about one other idea about hiring the right people for the right jobs. Are you seeing that?
Yeah.
Okay. And this square represents everybody in the world. Okay. And on the left side of the square are all the introverts. You know who you are. And on the right side are all the extroverts. We definitely know who the extroverts are, right? Okay. And then down the left-hand side is a little matrix, and there's people who are task and goal-oriented, okay? And then there are people who are more people and relationship-oriented, right? Everybody buying into it so far? Good. So the people who are extroverts and task and goal-oriented tend to be business owners. Approximately 60% of business owners are task and goal-oriented extroverts. Not all, And salespeople, they're driven. They're going to get that commission. They're going to make that sale. They're driven people. That's the kind of people that are in that quadrant. In the people who are extroverts, but they're more people, relationship-oriented, they make great recruiters. They also make really good salespeople, but maybe they don't hit their commissions every single time, but they're great salespeople and a great lesson. Okay? And if you have an introvert, that's a people-related person, they make great customer service people. They're going to buckle down and get that down and make that person happy. They feel really good when they're helping people. Support people, administration people, office manager type people. Fantastic in that particular quadrant. And then there are people who are introverts who are task and goal oriented. They tend to be the good project managers. Here's a long list of tasks that you need to get done. Cool. You know, and they crank and they get the. All of my project managers fall into that. They're introverts and they're task and goal oriented. Designers tend to be there as well. Now, I'm not saying that you can't be a designer if you're an extroverted people person. This is just a tendency, and nobody falls in the exact 4 quadrants. So we have a term to describe the people who are in that upper right hand. We call them Ds, and we call the people below that Is, and the people over from there are S's, and the people above that are C's. Okay, that's what we refer them to, and this is all from one methodology called DISC. Okay, anybody heard of a DISC profile? Okay, so in our hiring process, we have our description. We post that on Craigslist and other places. People in that, there's 5 questions. They answer those questions. I get their resume, I get their response, I look at the response to those questions. You'd be amazed how many people I can throw out just because they have terrible responses to the question. They say the exact wrong things, people I don't want in my company. Okay? I get rid of about half the people right there. And then I know that I'm hiring for, like just last week I just hired a new assistant. I knew I was hiring for somebody that's probably going to be in the S quadrant. They might, you know, kind of veer towards some of the others, but I want them to be a high S. So I want them to be a people person, but I don't want them to run around the office making everybody happy. I want them working for me, making me happy, right? So I want them to be a little more introverted. So everybody that survived that first cut, I sent them this Excel spreadsheet that I have that's a DISC test. And I sent it out to all those people and I got back all their responses. So then I went through and I said, you know what, I don't want another D. I don't want a D working for a D. That Ds don't get along very well with, well, we have to try to get along with everybody, but we don't get along, tend to butt heads with other Ds because we're exactly the same. I's get along with absolutely everybody. S's do well with a lot of people. In any case, I knew I was looking for an S, and so when I got back D's, and I automatically didn't invite the D's in for interviews. I looked at the I's and the C's and looked at their experience, and I invited some of those back, and invited back a lot of the S's. This, again, is after that first cut. Looked at the resume, I looked at the response to the questions. Those are the ones that came in for the interview. Okay? The interview is a group interview. I invited them all in at the exact same time. That's so that I could ask them questions and see who stands out from the crowd. It also saves a ton of time. Okay? And the first thing we do is review the company, and we read the vision, mission, and culture together as a group. Okay? This is it, and it is. People get to the end of that, and they're like, "Wow, this is this company. This is right." People love to read the vision, mission, culture in the interview process. And then we first we talk about the company, then we read the vision, mission, culture, and then we review the job. Here are your KPIs. Here's exactly what you're going to be doing day in and day out. If you get this job, you're going to sign this document that you're going to do these things. We're going to review it every month. And this is how you're going to get your bonuses. Okay? If you're successful, you're going to do all these things. Okay? They know this in the interview. And then I go around and ask them questions. And I ask questions that are geared toward the job and geared toward the particular thing that they're going to be doing. But after we review the company, I do something here that that you might find unusual. I may have 8 or 9 people in the room at the same time in our conference room. And so I review the company. Here's what we do. Now, is there anybody here that just doesn't feel like you want to work for a company that does that? And you know, if you don't feel like this is a good fit with a company, then now's a great time. You can excuse yourself. In fact, it's a favor for me if you would, because I don't have to eliminate you later. Okay? Then we review the vision, mission, culture, and I invite people to leave. If anybody doesn't feel like you want to work in this environment, if you don't want to come in and read these things every single day, then this is not the company for you, and I invite people to leave. Okay? And then we review the job. Here are the tasks that you're going to need to do day in and day out. And then I invite people to leave. And then I ask them the questions, and then that last invitation is not an invitation really. I review the questions, and I ask all the questions, and I'm taking notes about every single person that answered, as they answer questions and stuff, and then I leave them in the conference room, and I go in my office, and I let them drink water and coffee while I go back through all the interview stuff, and in a group of 9, I'm going to eliminate 3 or 4 of them immediately. I know right away these are not a good fit for us. And then I'm going to have 1 or 2 that I'm thinking, well, these are pretty good, and then I'm going to rank order the rest. And my goal is to have 3 people that I'm going to do one-on-one interviews with. So I get those 3 people, get their resumes, and I go back in the conference room and I say, thanks very much, everybody. I'm very nice, very polite. You have to be super nice about this because it's a weird process for most people. And I say, here are the people that I want to interview. Everyone else, thanks for coming out. I really appreciate it. But you're going to be great somewhere, but it's just not going to be here. And I walk them out of the building, and then I come back and I do one-on-one interviews, usually 20 or 30 minutes, because I've asked them a lot of questions already. And that person, that perfect person, they will rise to the top. They will stand out from the crowd. I have done a group interview before and not wanted to interview anybody in that group. So I had to start all over, run the ad again. That's a process problem, because I rewrote the ad because the ad was not tracking the right people. If I want an S, I need to use words that S is like. If I want to hire a salesperson, a D, I'm going to put goals and tasks and things like that in that job description. So 2 or 3 individual interviews. Total elapsed time to hire a new person is about 4 hours. I actually would add 2 or 3 hours to that as I reviewed resumes as they came in. That's very unusual. Right now it's a great time to hire people. I got a ton of resumes, probably 130 resumes from Craigslist alone. So saves a ton of time as a business owner. That's the faster you can hire good people, the better. Healthy profits. I know it's lunchtime. You need to have lots of profit in your business. Positive cash flow solves all your problems. Profit allows innovation. This is an idea I'm gonna throw out there. I know I'm in the minority, but operational borrowing leads to sloppy decision making. If you're borrowing, if you got a bank loan so that you can make payroll sometimes, that's sloppy. If you get a loan because you want to buy some equipment and you want to set up a clean room or you want to set up a hosting environment, you got to do some capital investments, that's a different thing. When you've planned it out well and you can justify it and it works well. But if you just got a line that you can use whenever you want, whenever something goes wrong, guess what? You're not going to be as strict about how you use that as you should be. You're going to take a little risk here, you're going to let that person stay on board a little bit longer than you should have when you should have fired them. You can do different things because, well, I can always pull off line of credit. Okay? I don't have a loan, I don't have a line of credit. Saying 5 minutes, or he's giving me a high five. I can't tell.
Yeah, you're 10 minutes over, but we'll tell you.
Well, I started 15 minutes late. The other guy.
Awesome. So you've got 5 more minutes.
And budget for profit. So get all your expenses, decide how much profit that you're going to make, and then set your prices. Okay? Don't set your prices and then hope for the best at the end of the month. Okay? Track everything. Tie the KPIs back to the balance sheet. Okay? People reading our vision, mission, and culture means that people are going to be on the same page. That's a KPI. I bonus them for it. Okay? But what it actually does is it reduces my recruiting costs. Because people who come into the Wiffle and they share their thoughts and feelings and they feel good about their work environment, they know that everybody's on the same page with what they're doing, they don't leave. So it greatly reduces recruiting and training costs. It ties right back into the bottom line of my company. And here's one that you're really not going to like. Profit does not equal cash flow. Okay? There was a question here about getting people to pay their bills. Who asked about somebody paying? Okay, over here. Okay. And what you have is you have a receivable, but guess what? Receivables are that's a profit. That's a profitable thing to have receivables. Somebody owes you money. That's great. The value of your company goes up when you have receivables. But unless you collect that money, your cash flow is negative. Profit is a theory. Here's what we should be making at the end of the month. Cash flow is the reality. Here's how much was actually in the bank. Okay, unspoken for. So understand that, and you'll do well with your financial statements. So what makes a successful business? It's commercial, it's profitable, it's an enterprise, it works. Without you, we talked about those 5 areas. A lot of books, a lot of ideas. It's like drinking from a fire hose right now, I understand. But anyway, that's it. So, talked about recruiting. This is a process issue. I'm simplifying a little bit. Cost sensitivity, we talked about the branding. I think I beat that horse for a while. Receivables. Yeah, you know how I solve receivables in my company? Everybody has to pay in advance.
How would you do it if you're doing like bidding on jobs?
They have to pay in advance.
It's just all in advance? Because we've only ever been able
Fine.
to get 50% up
Give
front.
50% in advance and then give me 25% when I'm
Like
halfway
miles.
done and then 25% at the end.
Yeah.
But if you go, well, we usually have to do this, but okay, if you give us the business, so then guess what? They're not going to give it to you in advance. I've not lost one customer when I told them I had to, you know what? And our service is monthly, it's a subscription, it's SEO, and people are spending between, well, a lot of money anyway. But at the beginning of the month, on the first of the month, I have their credit card on file, or their bank account number on file, and I pull that money on the first. For like June 1st, I pulled the money for the June work that we're gonna do. And some people are like, wow, I have to pay you in advance? Yes, sir, you have to pay me in advance. But you know what, it's in your contract, you're gonna pay me anyway. Here's how we do it, you can put it on a credit card, a lot of people like that. Okay, so in advance, get their credit card number, put it on file. Don't carry receivables, you're not a bank. And tell them that. You know what, we're a small company, and it's really important to us to have good solid cash flow. We want to be working on your project, not worrying about collecting money. So can we go ahead and just get that in advance? And set a minimum, at less than $5,000, you know, we have to have 100% in advance. You know, so Drupal's not equal to other sites, client education. I think this kind of goes to two things. It goes back to the sales process. If you have a process in place, which I know the person that said that's not here anymore, but if you have a good sales process, that helps. If you have a good production process, then I think that'll help a lot. And your branding helps that a lot. When somebody comes to you and you're the brand expert, you're the expert at building this kind of site, or doing this kind of product, or this kind of service, guess what? They're going to trust you implicitly. Because you look, here's 50 other companies that have done the exact same thing for. I don't want to have an argument with you about it, and maybe we're not a good fit. And they can decide, they want the best, or they want to run the project themselves, they go somewhere else. You have rights as a business owner. You have rights. You don't have to just, you know, do whatever your customer says because they gave you some money. You have rights. You don't have to change who you are and how you is good for your business. You'll never grow if you just do what everybody else tells you is the way that you're going to run your business. Either you own it or you don't. Okay. All right. Sales. I think I've hit on that. Technology. I didn't talk about that too much. What was the question again about technology or how to evaluate technology? I think it was.
It was mine, but actually you covered it with
Okay.
the launch process.
Okay. Good.
Because that's where they should be really clear about the decision they're making, and if they're not committed at that point, you're right, you block.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's not a good
They're
fit.
not ready, or their time isn't ready, or they still have to
Yep.
do some internal politics or whatever.
There are times when I take projects, or rather I have taken projects because I needed the money. I had to pay the bills, and you do that sometimes, but you're outside your normal process and you're spending a lot of time on that project, but you know what, you got the bills paid, so there's a trade-off.
Right. And
But-
yeah.
But most of the time, what I try and do is if I early in the sales process, and I have a particular sales process that I go through. It's called the Sandler Sales System, and it's a national company, Sandler, fantastic organization. They'll hand you the sales process and train you to it. Works great. But early in the sales process, I ask qualifying questions and make sure I understand my client's pain, and then I sell to the pain, is the idea. And if I can solve their pain, they don't ask me tech questions.
Well, they might, depending on the size.
Me,
If you're
I'm just talking about
But if you're
me, yeah.
enterprise-wise, they still will.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it's
Well,
different,
in
yeah.
enterprise, when I sell in enterprise, they tend to want to know more about my processes and what's going to happen when this happens, and whose neck do I ring when that happens, and are you going to protect my? We do work for HP and HP and Hewlett
Yeah,
Packard,
yeah.
and Zappos and Acquia and Fast Company, and I mean we do business for big, not just that, we do small companies too, but the process is what they're more interested in, because they want to know if it's going to scale out to the size that they have in their other business. Are there any other questions? I don't want to keep you any longer than you want to be here, but I'd be happy. This is like, SEO is what I do, building business is my passion. I love this stuff, so I'm happy to, talk about it more if you want. But you're free to go.